Concentration camps in World War II are one of the most horrific incidents in the history of the world. These camps were filled with mass violence and poor conditions that made it hard to live day to day. Many prisoners were beaten and given lack of food, which led to many prisoners starving to death. In early March of 1933, the first concentration camp, Dachau, opened outside of Munich, Germany. It was used primarily for political prisoners and was the longest-running camp in operation until it was later liberated in April of 1945. Early years of concentration camps were used by Germany to eliminate enemies of the state. The earliest prisoners were generally socialists, communists, homosexuals, and people who were considered socially different. The main goal of these camps was to exploit people for forced labor, as well as to incarcerate anybody who was said to be a threat to the Nazi regime. They were originally referred to as concentration camps because those who were imprisoned were concentrated physically into one area. Germany started targeting Jews after they annexed Australia in March of 1938. Many of the concentration camps had gas chambers to help in the killing of people considered too sick or weak to work. They also targeted groups that were political enemies, such as the Soviet Union prisoners of war and resistance fighters. Almost all of the camps had a very similar structure throughout. As the years progressed, forced labor was involved in almost every camp. Individuals in the camps were subject to forced labor, which led to many thousands of deaths due to the extremely poor conditions and exhaustion and starvation. It was also common for doctors to perform experiments on the prisoners in these camps, as well as selling medical supplies meant to be used on prisoners for money. The forced labor the prisoners had to deal with was up to 12 hours, sometimes up to 24 hours straight of labor. If you were unable to continue working, you would be killed. Many of the work being done was extremely hard labor and was only done to benefit the German army. Estimations show around 1 million Jews alone died from camps like this. Along with extremely awful working conditions, negative living conditions were also extremely common. There was a lack of running water being available to the prisoners, as well as not being able to shower or bathe. This, combined with the fact that many of the prisoners did not have a change of clothes, left them extremely uncomfortable. The living conditions were also extremely uncomfortable, with many prisoners being forced into close quarters with other prisoners. Prisoners were left alone for many hours in a day, sometimes entire days. This was done to leave them feeling isolated and to prevent them from having any communication with anyone from the outside. Many prisoners found that talking to other prisoners stuck in these camps in similar situations was the only way to keep themselves sane. Many of the German guards knew this, and that's why they decided to put some prisoners, specifically ones that they didn't like or wanted to target, into solitary confinement. One prisoner described his time in a German concentration camp, saying that the prisoners had only a few minutes to run to the shed to eat their meals. The meals were normally intentionally extremely hot, so that the prisoners would have trouble eating the food. For the prisoners who didn't make it back, they were either beaten or killed. The physical pain that those in the camps had to deal with was extreme and almost never stopped. This torment that they suffered through led to mental health problems as well. Many studies have shown that the survivors of these camps have both mental and emotional problems because of the horrific things that they lived through. These problems stick with them for the rest of their lives and affected those that lived through these awful camps even after they were liberated. Studies diagnose this problem as survivor syndrome, which is very similar to post-traumatic stress disorder. Depression and other problems arose from these conditions at the camps as well. Luckily, these camps were liberated by US and Allied forces, but the effects are still felt for many. Many of the people who did end up surviving through these concentration camps had many battles to fight the rest of their lives, including a plethora of mental health problems. While what happened in the past cannot be changed, preventing negative things from happening again in the future, like this, can be. Remembering the millions that died and the ones who suffered after the camps, both physically and mentally, is a big part in preventing this from ever occurring again.